Hey there guys, it's Jesse, and today, we're taking on the last boss of the Throne of the Four Winds, the Elemental Lord of Air himself, Akir. This fight is one of the most picky, finicky, and sometimes downright unfair fights in this expansion. For some reason, they always have to have one. While the fight itself is easy, Akir has abilities that, by simply being in the wrong place at the wrong time, can wipe an entire raid, and that's just in Phase 1. So like always, I'm gonna break down the phases and then talk about the fight itself. Once you've defeated the first boss encounter of the instance, you can use any one of their platforms to jump to his by clicking on the middle of the platform. It'll give you one of those jump on arrows. It'll send you whirling up over to him. Once you land, be very careful. Any stray clicks might aggro him. He has a massive hitbox. Also, before you engage, be sure to stay away from the edge. Sometimes you'll get sucked off and fly around the map like an idiot and just waste your raid's time. Just stay away from it. Once you've mastered those highly technical feats, we can now focus on Phase 1. Phase 1, aka holy crap, look at all the stuff going on phase, has a ton of abilities you need to avoid. The first is Ice Storm, which creates a blizzard that moves around the platform, leaving ice patches on the ground. While it does 15k damage every half second that you stand in it, the real problem comes from the constant need to move during this phase, which means that sometimes you're going to have to run through it, so it's really important to have the heals ready. The next is Static Shock, and where Akir shocks all nearby enemies, dealing 1k damage and interrupting spells. So this really only affects melee, so if you're ranged you want to stay out, but there's sometimes, you know what, since you have to move, that you're going to be in melee range. It's not really that big of a deal, I wouldn't worry about it too much. And while you're doing all that moving, you have to watch out for Lightning Strike, which deals an additional 20k damage in a cone facing a random player. Of course the effect chains, hitting all the players in the area, causing additional damage. Meanwhile, he's also going to use Wind Burst, which knocks everyone back and deals roughly 30k damage. The worst part is, if you're knocked off the platform, you slowly spin to get back onto it, taking damage the entire time. And most likely you're out of the range of most of the healers. Then to add to all of that, he constantly uses something called Squall Line, which causes rows of tornadoes to spawn with only one gap in them, causing you to have to run to the gap in order not to be sucked up into the tornado and carried around the platform, taking 40k damage a second. He still has more. The final ability is Electrocute, which causes him to send electricity into players if there's no one around to melee. So for example, if you all got knocked off, expect to be electrocuted and pretty much wiped. It's a lot, huh? I'll be honest with you, Phase 1 is the hardest phase of the fight, hands down. You will have more fails here than any of the other phases combined. There is a ton of movement, and you're gonna have to constantly think one step ahead. But we'll get to that part when we come to the strategy. Once you reach 80%, the skies will darken, the rain will fall, and the boss will enter Phase 2, aka time to take a breather. In Phase 2, he still has the Static Shock, Electrocute, and Squall Lines, which means you still have to be on the platform, someone still needs to be in melee range, and those damn tornadoes are still around, making you have to watch whichever direction you have to move to. In addition to this, he also now has Acid Rain, which constantly falls during the entire phase. It does 500 damage per second to all the enemies, and increases by 500 every 15 seconds, stacking so much that eventually it will kill you, so the longer you're in the phase, the worse it is. He will now also summon these little guys called Stormlings, which deal about 2 to 3k damage to all the players within 20 yards, which when slain, apply the feedback effect to the boss. Feedback gives Akir a debuff that increases the damage he takes by 10%, lasting about 20 seconds. You should definitely think about this ability much like you did with the Going South achievement in Tol'vir. You want to make sure you aren't stacking them too fast, but in fact waiting to make sure you get the most benefit out of the stacking. Again, like Phase 1, we'll go over this in the strategy section. Finally, once you hit 25%, he'll break the platform and a DPS race against time begins. In Phase 3, you float through the air with increased speed, giving you the ability to move around and avoid stuff, but at the same time, the whole area is now under his control as he is in command of the wind. The first thing you have to worry about is during the entire phase, he's going to cast lightning on random players, dealing about 30k damage, so you have to be healing everybody all the time. Also, he'll cast Lightning Rod, which randomly targets a player, causing them to emit lightning bursts that will hit any nearby allies. And of course, Windburst has returned, but this time, if it knocks you back too far, you'll get caught in something called a Relentless Storm, which will spin you around the boss, making you unable to do anything and essentially killing you. But the final thing is the one you have to watch out for. It's called Lightning Cloud. The reason for the rush in Phase 3 is this. He will summon clouds at the altitude of a random player, and after 5 seconds the clouds will erupt in lightning, dealing 50k damage a second to anyone near that altitude. And it basically lasts as long as you need to win or wipe. This ability alone takes the most time to get used to, and forming a strat is necessary. And adding that to all the other abilities, let's just say that I have died to this phase far more times than I would even like to think about. So now that we've talked about all of his abilities, let's get into the actual strat for the fight. Before you begin, you want to spread your raid out to a little over half the platform. Clearly in a 25 you're going to want to use the whole thing, but this is a 10. The idea here is to avoid causing too many problems with the Lightning Strike cone attack. You should have at least one healer in range of every player, and make sure you have the totems down so most of the people in your raid can get them. When the phase starts, the boss will unload all of his abilities on you, and you need to start thinking ahead immediately. The squalls are going to force you to move in a certain location on the platform, which is random every time. The ice slows you down, and without fail, at least one side of the platform is going to get the squalls and the wind burst at the same time, which will most likely blast you into the squall, not only forcing you to take damage from the wind burst, but also the tornadoes as well. Like I said, you have to think ahead during this fight. So let's try this. Pop quiz, hotshot. A squall is coming and DBM just announced a windburst is on the way. There's ice behind you, and you know you won't be able to outrun the squalls without either A, being sucked up into them, or B, the windburst knocking you into them. But if you don't do anything, the windburst will knock you into them anyway. And if you try to outrun them to get into the open space further in the platform, you risk the chance of being in a group of people when lightning strike goes off, causing the chain to kill all of you. What do? What do you do? In this case, the smartest thing to do is run and jump off the edge. I know it sounds silly, and you'll be taken out of the fight, and you'll take some damage, but you'll take far less damage than you would have from the squall or the lightning, and your downtime will only be a fraction of what it would have been if you were hit by the other abilities. Plus, your chance of actually wiping the raid is very slim. Crazy how that works, huh? Like I said, this phase is nuts. My advice, DPS him hard and fast and push to phase 2. Once in phase 2, melee stack up on the tank and the range stack behind them. Have someone call out the squalls and make sure to avoid them while keeping everyone up. The major thing to worry about here is ensuring that 3 stormlings are up before you kill any of them. This way, you can have a 5 or 6 stack on the boss rather than a 1 or 2. It'll help you push through this phase and get him down before the acid rain damage kills you. Once you're in the final phase, the key is making sure everyone knows what they're doing and where everyone else is. There are several strats here, but we found this one the easiest to go to. When you hit this phase, everyone goes to the top of the screen immediately. This is where you're going to start. Stay as close to him as you can to make sure the wind bursts don't knock you into the relentless storms, and everyone stays at the top. If anyone gets the lightning rod, they need to move to the right or to the left, not back, not up, not down. Once everyone is at the top, he'll cast Lightning Cloud. It should be at the very top of the encounter area. Once you see the cast, everyone moves down, call it out. It's okay to yell and vent. Once you move down, go as far as you need to get away, but then immediately head back up to just below where the cast was. You're going to save some space here and make sure everyone gets there. Like I said, if you need to yell and vent, do it. You have to make sure that everyone gets back up to roughly the same altitude level, because he's going to cast it again, and everyone needs to be in that area, so you can now all go all the way down again to avoid it, and then back up just underneath it. You're going to want to do this several times over and over and over again. But you also have to remember that while you're doing all this up and down, you only have so much room, and eventually you will run out of room and have no place to move, and the next lightning cloud after that will kill you. That right there is the major movement in phase 3. You're going to keep doing this over and over and over again until the boss is dead. A lot of people are going to fail at it. Hell, I still fail at it. But luckily you do not need everyone to kill this guy. Now if you're ballsy like our raid was during this boss kill video you're about to see, you can keep a stormling up for this phase and kill it. Akir will take more damage, and you also get an achievement if you kill him while he has the debuff on. It's tough to deal with all the sources of damage, but you know what? If you can do it, go for it. Anyway, that's it. That's the strat. It's just one of those fights that has a ton of crap that can easily kill you, and it just takes some time to get the hang of it. But once you do, it's easy to avoid them, and this fight will become second nature. But as always, why talk about it when I can just show you? This is our most recent kill of Akir with achievement, and remember, even though it took me weeks to get this video to a point where I could show you all the phases without me doing something incredibly stupid and dying, I finally did it, so I can officially say, if I can do it, so can you. Thanks for watching, thumbs up, subscribe, and as always, to be continued.